Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel that I'm still calling Work in Progress. We're still pretty new. However, still have the vision that to have conversations with people just like you and me about all the different experiences we have had in our life's journey. The stories or the challenges or the maybe the bravery we've exhibited, whatever, a whole large focus on how has our life journey been and what are the stories that we could share about our life journey that could possibly help others, because I think this is where we're at this time where we are in this kind of challenging, a lot of people are calling an evolution. I totally agree with that. And I think we all need to contribute in whatever way we can. So that's what I'm attempting to do, is contribute, and hope that I'll find some others that will join with me in the very near future, and we'll get on Zoom and we'll talk about or discuss or have a debate, whatever, about what's going on here, or challenges, or it's a sharing of our stories, right? So I know I bring this up at the beginning, but that's just in case you don't stay till the end, so I bring it up again at the end. Sorry for this repetition. I'll try to keep it brief. Also just want to remind you that my contact information is always below this video, so please contact me. Let me know if you're interested in having a conversation or anything. Leave comments, and I'll promise that I'll get back to you in both the comments and if you contact me as well. So, and also just a reminder at the end, or even you can do this at the beginning, if you like these videos, please click like and also subscribe, and then that little gadget next to subscribe button will let you know when new videos are coming on board. I'm hoping that I start to do, maybe publish a little more often than, I think I've been doing about once a week, maybe slightly more, but we'll see how things go. Definitely if we can start to get some conversations going on, I'm sure we'll be publishing more often. So what I wanted to get on today and talk about is something that I've been really looking at for quite some time. And it's everybody's favorite subject, I'm sure, because it's called fear. Yeah, not really everybody's favorite subject, right? But it is a really important thing I'm finding to look at, how we use fear and how fear can kind of look very different than it really is. It can it's great. It's like a chameleon. It can come out looking nothing like fear. And this is where I think if we can get, for those of us that are on this kind of path, if we can begin to catch when our fear is disguising itself as something else other than fear, we learn a lot about ourselves, and we also really begin to have a more intimate relationship with fear, which at the end of the day is a very positive thing, because we begin to understand when fear is appropriate, and if it isn't, what can we do about it? Gotta take a sip here. So, fear can, like I said, it can be very disguised. We can think that we're making, this is common, so you'll get this quick. You could think you're making a decision for something that, and it's based on an intellect, good research, whatever, decision, and of let's say purchasing something. But if you really look deeper into it, there's a fear factor that if you don't purchase this now, you may not get it later. So there's that supply and demand, we could call it, whatever we want to call it, but underneath at the very base is a fear of not getting what you want, right? There's the fear of feeling afraid that it's too risky, that it's not the right time to do something. So you hold back on a decision or something that you want to do because it feels too risky. Now, I'm not talking about off the wall here, anything. Obviously, there's times to be prudent. In other words, if there's a major snowstorm coming and they're saying don't drive up to the mountains right now, the roads will be closed, then you are making a decision not to do something, and we could say that is based on a concern, maybe not fear. So those are kind of the more obvious ways, but there's a lot of ways for each of us, I believe, or most of us, I should say, where we're making decisions or reacting to things or doing or not doing something based on that hidden part of the fear, where fear disguises itself as looking like something else. I'll give you a quick example, for instance, where I had this mantra I've mentioned before, and when growing up, with the abusive treatment that I was receiving, and often it was verbal, and I said, I'm going to prove to myself, it was to myself, but I don't know how I said it. I think I said, I'm going to prove I'm not who they say I am. So in that case, I passed fear up. I wouldn't let fear stop me. In fact, it propelled me in a way to take more risks than maybe were even a good idea in business or whatever, but it propelled me because the consequences of not doing that is then I may be who they said I am, which was not a good thing, which was a very negative kind of thing. So that would propel me, and I looked to others like very independent, very brave, very courageous, yada yada. Not so much on the physical level. It wasn't like I was jumping off mountains, but definitely on a business level, career level, that type of thing, moving from state to state, whatever. So that was my thing where, it didn't look like fear was propelling me, but it definitely was and did. And, in my case, maybe that was a good thing. So maybe in all of our cases, there's times where this fear is disguised, but maybe that's an important piece of our moving through or moving outside of a belief or programming that we got in growing up. So that's just a few examples. But what I'm going to suggest is every time you're really coming up with a decision, whether it's to purchase something, to not purchase something, to sell the house, not to sell the house, whatever it is, buy a new car, not buy a new car. And it doesn't have to be in just purchasing, whatever it is, to maybe there's a risk in relationships or to get on a dating site. I mean, it's all over the place, right? That these opportunities come up. Maybe we're eating certain foods because we read an article that said you need to have these foods or you're going to end up with a high cholesterol, or to lower your cholesterol you must do this. It's all over the media, it's all over the social media, it's all over everywhere, all of these ideas of what people are trying to sell, and they're always based on fear. They're always based on fear when you look deeper into it, and we buy in if that happens to be our particular fear factor. Okay, so as we look deeper within ourselves to really get in touch with this fear, that allows us to really release that energy or some of that energy and be able to see through why we're really doing something or why we're making a particular decision. It gives us a better place to come from, to kind of back up from maybe where we're headed. It's not to be judged, fear. It's not to be, how do I want to say, looked at in a negative way at all. It's just to be seen. Where am I coming from with this situation or this decision? Maybe you're thinking of you're in a bad relationship, but the fear is afraid to try to be on your own. that can be kind of obvious, but you need to look deeper then to say, well, why is this fear there? Well, maybe it's because somebody in your family, or maybe even your mother or your father, got out of a relationship and it ended up a bad situation where financially, emotionally, who knows? But there's always a deeper way to look at what's the seed of this fear? Where did it begin? And how is it affecting me today? So I've been doing this for quite some time now, not just a few months, probably into a lot of years, but as I continue to do it, I continue to see through it more and more often. One of the big fears, and actually I've just recently gotten in touch with this, is, for me, is I have a fear of blood. Not just my blood, anybody's blood, but particularly mine as well. When I have to have a blood test, I go through tremendous anxiety. Or if anybody else is showing up with blood, like my husband cuts his finger, and that happened just a few days ago, and I start to get this intense energy running through me. And through the years, I have discovered it's something about a past life for me, where it was a horrendous injury to my body was the best way to call it. I don't want to go into the details, and I don't even have all the details. I don't want to know the story, but I do know that this is coming from a past life where it was horrendous what happened. And what I get is an energy moving through my body that is so uncomfortable. I want to run away from it. I feel like I'm going to faint from it, yada, yada. Anyway, this has been with me almost since I can remember. At one point I thought it happened because when I was a child, something happened with blood, but I don't think so, or with doctors. I don't think that's where it was. I think that triggered this past life thing. So what I've been learning to do with that, and I just did this a few days ago, is I started to get this, he cut himself fairly bad, and I can't even stand to talk about it. I start to get this energy running through me, and I then recognize, I go, all right, it's energy, this is energy. I don't want to know the story of this past life, I don't want to know. But it's energy, and can I just breathe and release this energy, and it'll stop this trauma, or the way that I have these stories around blood, right? Like, how did he do it? Okay, oh my God, I just, I can turn it into a horror story. But as I kept saying to myself, no, this is energy. I just need to release these feelings that I get and let them go. Let them go. It's a good thing that this got triggered, so I can let it go. And in doing that, I can kind of take a different view of the bloody finger, and not meaning to stare at it, just in my mind start to see it in a lesser traumatic way. And so that's what I've been doing with that particular thing I have, whatever we want to call it, of blood. So that's another example. So I'm not the only person out there that I know doesn't want blood or shots or whatever messing with our body, so to speak. Yet, if I'm so, if there's something that I want to have done cosmetically or whatever, if it depends on where it's at with me, then maybe all of a sudden the blood wouldn't be such a big deal. I watch myself, what is the motivation? I think that's key. What is motivating us to do something? And, in cosmetic stuff, it could be a fear of aging, and being looked down upon, or not looked at as a credible person. I don't know how to say that. Or we don't want to feel that we're looking old. I grew up with that mantra with my mother of not to look old. Like, we can stop that. Anyway, so there's another thing of fear. So I could move past my blood issue, or even dealing with a doctor, which I do not want to ever do, even though I've done it, of course, but in the last many, many years, I haven't had to, and I really will do anything I can not to have to go to a doctor, so to speak. I have issues and trust that way. And maybe some of them are properly there for a good reason. Anyway, so enough about that stuff and the blood thing. But again, look deeper, and that I'm absolutely 100% sure that I can release this energy and get to a place where I won't have that kind of trauma. One of the things, if you listen to many of the near-death experiencers, oftentimes they'll talk about once they come back from their near-death experience, they've lost fear. They just don't have any fear. I'm not talking about the fear of walking in front of a bus. I'm saying that, or running from a tiger. But you know the fear I'm talking about, the emotional fear. And so many will say, I just have no fear. I mean, some of it's no fear of dying, but others just, the fear is gone. Or some people that have gone through different awakenings, they'll say, my fear just left. I don't have fear. I have peace. I have contentment. And so they're making their decisions from the intuitive side, which will never be made because of fear, lack of fear, or fear, anything with fear. That's not how that is done when you're coming from your intuition. It can't be driven any possible way by fear. So that's another thing we can look at. Where is my motivation coming from? Does it come from my ego, from that, false self, or is it coming from my intuition? And if I think it's coming from my intuition, but I can look deeper and see it's fear, then we know, no, that's not where it's coming from. I think this could be a really good guide in a lot of decision making, because, a lot of us will struggle and suffer through certain decisions, trying to think we can make the right decision, and afraid to make the wrong decision. So I think this could be a great practice. This would be a fun, really good thing to have a conversation with someone about this, or where we could have maybe even a little panel and kind of give our take on how we feel, or how we've experienced, really, when we have the fear. So I'm going to also just give something now of an idea that's come up for me. I shouldn't call it an idea, an experience, really. And that would be also related to fear. So the state that I live in requires that you have to, in order to renew your driver's license, you have to go physically to the DMV, take the written test and the eye test before you can renew your license. And this happens I don't know if it's every 3 years, or I think it's every 3 years. And it's a pain in the butt. I mean, for me, it's a major, major pain in the butt. It's like our DMV, we have plenty of locations. None of them are run efficiently. You are standing in line for hours, even though you make an appointment to do this. On top of that, I happen to have test anxiety, so I have to, I don't have to, but I study over the top because of this test anxiety. It's a very unpleasant time, but I've done it for many years now, and in the past, as I've moved from many times to different states, so I've gone through the process. Well, this time, so this is a year that I'm supposed to renew, and I got the little notice in the mail, and I thought, you know what, I'm not going to renew. There's no need for me to renew based on my lifestyle now. And I have been a person that has driven huge amounts of miles, let's just say that, and in different states, even in a different country. And that different country, when we lived abroad, really put me over the top with terror of driving, so to speak. So I don't know that I ever loved driving, but I drove. I drove from different states. I drove because of outside sales. I just drove a lot. I loved cars. I loved like sports cars and that kind of fun car. But I don't know that I loved the driving part of it. It's kind of weird for me to say this, but Was I enamored with driving? I know some people say, oh, I love to just drive. I totally get relaxed, drive on the coast or whatever. I don't know that I've been totally relaxed ever driving. I've driven in lots of traffic, and that's not relaxing for me. And I discovered at one point that I didn't like driving over bridges. I don't know where that came from, but that became an issue. But I did it. I did it in spite of the fear, right? For whatever was motivating me at the time. So anyway, back to this renewing my license. So here's where fear comes in, or why we do something. Why? So if somebody says, you know, oh my gosh, I'm not, or what if so and so can't drive anymore? He or she is going to feel, she won't feel that she has her independence. You hear that a lot. I'll take their car away and they don't feel like they have their independence. Well, for me, here's the deal. I feel like I'm done driving. I don't even like it. I don't like it at all. And I don't need to drive because I'm not driving anywhere daily, like to a job or something. I don't do that. My husband and I tend to go together to the grocery store. I don't even love to go to the grocery store, but I usually go with him. So that's not something I have to do. There's nothing I have to do to drive somewhere. And if it's yucky and rainy, I hate the driving to try to park, and you have to park far away. And, you know, I guess I'm a bit of a diva maybe. I don't know. But anyway, I just have no interest anymore in driving. And after living abroad in this particular country we lived in, that was traumatic for expats driving, although they did. I did a teeny bit, not much, but I didn't even want to be a passenger in the car. And there were consequences, major consequences, if you were an expat and you got in an accident, then that could land you in jail. There was just stories after story, and for me it was like, oh my God, it became like PTSD. Whatever that is, PTSD, is that how you say it? So that was been my more, what do I want to call, recent, not very recent, but that was an experience that really caught me, or got me to see I don't really need to drive. So anyway, but the ridicule or the attitude, or if I really say to somebody, you know what, I'm not going to renew my license. I don't really need to drive. Hey, if I need to go somewhere and my husband's not available, there's Uber. I've never done Uber, but I figure I can probably figure that out. There's, you know, you can get your groceries delivered now, if that's a deal. But in my life right now, my lifestyle, I don't need to drive. I haven't even been driving for, I don't know, since COVID, let's say. I've had no reason. I don't know, maybe for a few minutes here or there, but not really. All of my basic appointments that I used to have, like the hair salon or whatever, you know, I wasn't going to that during COVID. And actually, I'm still not started back there yet. There's, to me, an independence that I'm loving, of not being tied down to a certain way of being or doing or following what supposedly needs to be happening, following those ideas, you know, following the crowd. So I'm not going to renew my license. I have a few months before I have to make that decision, but I know I've already made up my mind, and I am concerned. I have to admit, I don't like the idea of, I wonder what people will say if for some reason it comes up that I'm not driving. Will I be ridiculed? Will I be looked at as, oh my God, you're that old now, you just can't drive? Okay. I don't know. But I'm talking to myself and saying, who the you know what cares, because I want to do what's right for me. And what's right for me right now is not to go through that hassle. I consider it such an awful hassle at the DMV and standing in line, and God forbid you don't pass one of the tests, then you have to go back and do it again. And the whole business just says to me, I don't want it. I don't even get it. Why after, I think it's after 65 or 70, you have to then go to the DMV to get your license renewed. And I'm thinking, how many 70-plus-year-olds are actually texting while they're driving, which is really a big part of how accidents happen. So why have they picked a certain senior group out to decide, okay, now this is how we'll know if you're going to be a good driver. The whole thing doesn't make sense, but that, hey, that's not a conversation that we need to have, right? That's just me and my rant. So anyway, I'm bringing this up or pointing this out to say I actually looked at this very clearly. I've been looking at it for quite a while. And rather than what most people would think, you lose your independence by not driving, I feel I gain my independence by not driving. I gain it in many ways, that I don't have to have that experience that I don't want to have about going to the DMV, and that I've driven. It's not like I haven't driven before in my life. I've driven way more than I really needed to drive in some level, or wanted to maybe. So it's not like I haven't had the experience of driving and I'm missing out on that. No, it's strictly, I don't want to do it. You know? I don't see the advantage of me having to go through whatever to get this driver's license renewed when I don't even want to drive. And yes, it's going against the flow. It's going against what the belief is, I guess. Is that what we would call it? The belief and attitude of don't give up your independence. I don't know what it is, but I'm sharing this with you because I do know, even my husband will say, you know, I think it'd be good for you to just have your driver's license. Not that he has any issue about taking me someplace or dropping me off someplace if I needed to have that done. That's not a problem for him. I mean, he's clearly stated that. So it's not for selfish reasons. Well, maybe it is for some kind of reasons, like he just feels, maybe he feels I'm going to lose my independence. I don't know. But he supports whatever I finally decide to do. Well, I believe unless something really strange happens in between now and then, I'm not going to renew this driver's license. Granted, you know, down the road, I guess if I wanted to, I could. Who knows what's involved to do that once you've not had it. But anyway, I just feel a relief in making this decision. And I'm bringing this up strictly to have you guys, what do you look at that you're making decisions on that maybe you don't even know why you're making that decision? Where is it coming from? My husband and I really had many, many shifts during this COVID period because so many things were no longer a part of our life based on either the beginning when we were quarantined or just didn't go back to it. And so we've really simplified very much our life to the point, yes, it can look rather boring. It can feel boring at times, but the simplicity has been a real blessing in my mind, of not these have to do things, shoulds, that are connected with being a part of society in a certain way, is maybe how I could say that. So that is mostly what I wanted to share, is this whole idea of where is fear? Are we making our decisions based on fear? Or not making decisions because of fear? But look at the fear, because we really need to release fear. That is our biggest problem, I believe, is where we come from fear. The fear factor, the fear whatever. It's not a good thing, and it's something that we don't have to have in our life. It's truly, I mean, we don't. And so by being able to see through it, remember, everything is an inside job. Nothing has anything to do with the exterior. Everything is an inside job. It has to happen here first. So I'm just sharing, because I've discovered this whole world of fear, no fear, choices, world of choices. Then I wanted to share that. And I really think could be a lot of discussion we could share with one another that could help others in terms of how are we functioning, how do we do our life, and what is this fear about, and how is your fear disguised into something that you don't even see it as fear, you know? It looks different than fear, but if you look deeper, you'll discover that it got disguised as something else, where in reality it was just fear. So, try it out. See what you think. Give this idea a try on your end and see if you start to come up with where you're having fear but you didn't recognize it. And I'd love to hear your comments, love to hear how that's working for you. So again, I say I'd love to have a conversation with you via Zoom and put it on the channel. It'll be about your life journey, particular story or stories of your life journey. Maybe it'll be about fear, maybe it'll be about something entirely different, who knows. But let's see if we can't get the conversations going. I'm going to remind you, if you like the video, click like. That'll help me a lot. And if you subscribe, that'd be great. Love to have you subscribe, and then click that little doodad next to this subscribe button, and that'll alert you as to when new videos are posted. So I hope this helps somebody. Always, 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 I hope this helps somebody. And I hope I'll hear from some of you in the not too distant future. In the meantime, though, take care, breathe, and release.